Almost every consensus building process involves some kind of investigation, that is data gathering or information gathering or assessment of information, so that the group can then complete its deliberations and make decisions. I want to zoom in for a minute on what actually goes on during joint fact-finding. So assume a set of people have to make a decision, and technical or scientific input is important. I would argue good joint fact-finding would begin by clarifying what questions need to be answered. And I wouldn't turn those questions over to the technical advisors. I would want a conversation between the people who are going to use the results of the analysis or the data gathering or the forecasting and the people who are going to do the work with them or for them. So clarify the questions. Then secondly, let's agree on who the helpers are going to be, because a lot of times technical information is subsequently rejected because people say, I don't trust the doer of the analysis. They had a conflict of interest or something like that. So step one was, let's agree on what questions to answer. Step two, let's agree on what technical helpers we're going to use. Step three, in my view, is let's ask the technical helpers to explain to people, even lay people, what methods they're going to use and how sensitive those methods are to certain problems that might come up. Like if there's missing data and you're trying to do an analysis, the analysts know, well, that really means that the technical person has to fill in a gap, make a judgment, interpolate, and that could have a huge effect on the result, meaning that subjective decisions by the analysts could have more to do with the result than the formal analysis. So I would argue the third step in joint fact-finding is that the people doing the technical work have to be accountable to the people who are going to use their results with regard to how sensitive the methods are to certain data gathering or other analytic problems that might come up.
And do the participants, the non-experts, do they ever help the experts figure out those methods or how they'll go about it?
I've been in situations where experts have been very surprised when lay people have said, no, why don't you do this? Don't you know about those data? Don't you know that you could actually get this information this way? And so somebody who flew in from away, who had great credentials, actually didn't have as good an understanding of data sources or ways of getting certain information. So I'm not saying that always happens, but I really want there to be some explicit discussion about methods. And then the next step is the technical people do their work. They need to bring back their results before they're finalized and say, this is what we found. This is what we're going to present you. You got any questions about that? Things that are not clear? Worries about that? And the group can say, really? That's what you're going to give us? What about a table like this? What about a comparison like that? So then when the final report is delivered, people are not surprised and the information is presented in a form that's most useful to them. And then there's one last thing that rarely happens, which is I think technical people should have to sit with the people using their findings and say, what questions do you folks have about what you're going to do with this information to make decisions? And while it's not up to us, the technical people, to say what conclusions you should draw about what to do, you can speak to us. We know the data, we know the analysis. Maybe we can just give you some reactions before you use the results to make prescriptive decisions. So joint fact-finding is a more drawn-out process than most people think, with more pieces and parts to it. But the goal is to make sure that scientific and technical input into group decision-making really works and is taken seriously by the people who need the help.